Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I'm Justin, and I think beepers are pretty cool.
I'm Nico, and honestly, all being said, I think Ghostface is even still one of the most underrated members of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Damn it, I was
Fair.
going to make a Wu-Tang reference, Nico. Fuck. Well, I'm Dan, the guy who was going to make a Wu-Tang reference.
Hey,
He doubled down. I love it.
and contrary to what this intro sounds like, we're actually here today to talk about Scream, the OG one from '96. So this was directed by the legendary Wes Craven, starring Neve Campbell as Sydney, Courtney Cox as Gail, Matthew Lillard as Stu, Skeet Ulrich as Billy, David Arquette as Dewey, and Roger L. Jackson as the voice of Ghostface. And there's a lot more people in this movie. I'm sorry. It's a very star-studded ensemble.
The cast is really fucking big, okay?
But I couldn't say everyone. My bad. If I didn't call out your favorite person. So we open with a local high school girl receiving a phone call from a mysterious stranger. The call kind of starts out as somewhat playful, but quickly grows dark as the caller murders the girl's boyfriend right on her back patio. The killer, known as Ghostface, breaks into the house, brutally murdering the girl and leaving her body for her parents to find. Kind of an opening that really jumps out there and gets you. So, Nico, what happens afterwards?
Well, at this point, we swap over to Sydney and Billy, who both attend the same high school as the recently deceased Drew Barrymore character. Who I realized we forgot to name, but that's showbiz, baby. After some quick kissing, Billy leaves. The next morning, Sydney finds out about the recent murder, which brings up some, negative emotions and memories of her own mother's murder 1 year prior to then. Gail Weathers, a local news reporter, arrives then at this point, and we are made aware of the fact that Gail pushed some conspiracy theories about Sydney's murder, which is really shitty, including the fact that they put an innocent man in prison for the crime. Big fucking oof. So, that night, Sydney's attacked by Ghostface when Billy suddenly arrives, and Billy drops his cell phone, which causes Sydney to think that he is Ghostface, and the cops proceed to arrest Billy while she goes to stay with her friend Tatum and her brother, Officer Dewey. As luck would have it, Ghostface calls again, which takes the suspicion off of Billy, at least. Tatum's boyfriend, Stu, throws a massive party then, since school has been canceled due to, murder, and everyone shows up. Ghostface is at the party, though, and manages to wipe Tatum off of the scoreboard.
That's unfortunate, but damn, how does this one wrap up?
Well, now Billy shows up at the party, and he and Sydney get some alone time to make up. Meanwhile, Stu tells everyone that the principal was killed and his body is on the football field, and most of the partygoers head over to the school. Just then, Billy and Sydney get attacked by Ghostface, and Billy gets poked up. Sydney flees and Officer Dewey gets stabbed. Sydney then returns to the house, takes Dewey's gun, and heads inside. Stu and another student show up, both claiming the other is the killer, and Billy reappears, still injured. Sydney hands him the gun, and he shoots the other student, injuring him. Well, as it turns out, both Billy and Stu are actually Ghostface.
Damn.
The two work together to orchestrate the murders, and they both are going to kill everyone, leaving only the two of them alive. It also turns out that they are the ones who killed Sydney's mother a year ago. Gail jumps in with Dewey's pistol, but the safety is still on, and Billy incapacitates her. Sydney manages to escape and then calls Billy and Stu and actually ambushes Stu, dropping a TV on his face, killing him. Gail then shoots Billy, and Sydney shoots him again, killing him. The movie ends with Gail, Dewey, and Sydney having survived the horror. The end.
Plus Randy, but no one talks about Randy. So,
And Randy. Randy was there.
He was, in fact, there.
He was. So I guess let's go ahead and we'll start from the top. So how's this movie look? Well, I had the honor of watching this, this movie was available in, the highest level format possible. So I watched it on the highest level format possible.
Oh, yeah?
And just generally, I think the movie actually looks really, really good. Not even taking all that into account. I love the way that the scenes are shot. I really, really do enjoy just everything about this movie. I like the way the blood looks. It's not the goriest movie by far, but they're not afraid to show you what happens when somebody gets stabbed. So I liked it. I truly liked the way it looked. Thoughts on that, Dan?
That glare, though.
Your parents have a fucking HDR TV?
Oh,
8K
I
HDR
double checked it when I came back home. I had the time.
Bruh.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Bruh.
You don't believe
I
it?
don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I don't believe
Anyways,
it.
I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, the blood, the horror gore parts look pretty good. The outfits and everything were pretty classic 90s, you know?
It was very nostalgic, the fucking
Yeah.
fashion choices, man.
Definitely. But it all looked good. I mean, it even though it was nostalgic in 90s, it didn't look dated.
No.
It wasn't like so 90s that it's like dated, you know? But no, I thought everything looked great.
You know what's actually interesting though, Dan?
Hmm.
When you compare kind of some of the style choices and whatnot in this movie to the ones in Fear Street, like the 1990s edition of Fear Street,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually really interesting to see kind of like where they are kind of similar and also where they are different. I feel like, for better or worse, a lot of the outfits in this movie are kind of cheesy nowadays, like looking back. Whereas in the Fear Street movie, I think they were a bit more stylized and kind of like what someone who wasn't there would have thought they wore back then, versus obviously in the Scream movie, that's literally what they were wearing at that point in time.
Yeah.
So it's just cool. It's really cool to see.
We call this segment Justin sets aside some more time to talk shit on Fear Street.
Whoa. Hey, whoa. I didn't mean to.
It's like, setting aside Scream for a second here. Let's
go back to Fear Street real quick. I'm not done talking about that pack of shit. No, okay? I'm not.
That was only 50 episodes ago.
Relax. Well, Nico, why don't you go ahead and rain on this parade, though, and grow some seeds of truth. How does this movie look to you?
Seed of Truth, gonna keep that one in the old memory bank. This one looked good. The great thing about this movie is that you really don't need much. The sort of big spooky thing is a guy in a fucking Party City outfit.
Yeah.
I remember being Ghostface for Halloween before I even knew what Scream was, really. Because, for context, when this came out, I was like 5 or 6 and wasn't exactly into the same kind of stuff I was into right now. You feel me there? And I don't know, man. It's just cool to sort of see the origin of all of this finally after all this time.
Nice. In terms of the sound, where are you at, though, Nico? Do you like just generally the soundtrack of this film?
Yeah, I do. And something that I thought was really funny is they had a kind of like a nice little remix of Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult in there at one point. And I was just really laughing when that came on because there's a fair portion of a video game Returnal that has a heavy inclusion and emphasis of that, in fact, song for a bunch of the same reasons, too. But yeah, no, it sounded really good. The acting was good. The dialogue didn't sound forced at all. The characters had a lot of chemistry together, and there wasn't any part of it that sounded unnatural.
I agree. And for the record, I quite liked pretty much everything to do with this movie sonically. I thought that, the kind of tense moments were punctuated by tense sounds, for lack of a better phrase. And just generally, I was a fan. But Dan, why don't you go ahead and elucidate us with your bright thoughts?
Oh, I agree with everything you guys said. And one thing that I thought was kind of cool, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, I'm sure, but just all the different like horror references and
absolutely,
and everything just all throughout this whole movie is like a love letter to the genre kind of. But near the beginning, when Ghostface first calls Casey, he asks her like what your favorite horror movie is, and when she says Halloween, you hear like a variation of the Halloween theme song. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, like and sort of auditory cue there, auditory reference to go along with the actual reference. So I thought that was really cool, and I just overall really liked the score and everything.
Yeah. So I guess kind of moving on a little bit, one thing that I really noticed here about this movie is there's 2 killers here. So, they're kind of playing it coy a little bit where you have the 2 killers. How'd you guys like that? Did you enjoy the fact that there were 2 killers?
I liked it. I thought it personally, for me, it kind of kept me guessing a little bit because kind of near the beginning, I was like, oh, Billy's the killer. I bet he's the killer. He's got to be the killer. And then, of course, well, he's in jail and Ghostface still calling, oh, well, I guess he's not the killer. And I kind of went through the same thought process that Sydney did. And, oh, well, maybe actually his one call was to call her or whatever. But, no, I don't think so. So I thought having the two killers was a good sort of twist to kind of keep you guessing a little bit.
I'm pretty much in line with that. Nico, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I thought that Matthew Lillard's character was going to be like the one guy. And then when we see a scene where, you know, just like immediately after Ghostface stabs somebody, I think it was the garage door scene, which just, that was terrifying. But after that scene, we see, you know, Stu's just like by the fucking grill talking with people, just like kind of having a good time. And so I was like, wait, what the fuck is going on? So it definitely surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, most certainly. And I guess it's almost like a follow-up to that. This is probably one of the most human killers we've seen. By that, I mean Stu and Billy. But like, Ghostface gets his ass whooped a fair amount in this movie. Like, he gets kicked, goes flying.
It's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they take their fair share of damage, the you know, two guys playing Ghostface. We ask this sometimes on the pod, but does that detract from you in this particular movie? I'll lead here and say no, only because this isn't like a supernatural creature. This is clearly a person. You know what I mean? It's like a person taunting you, like, what's your favorite scary movie? All this other bullshit. So, yeah, no. I mean, I definitely don't think it cheapens it for me at all. But what do you guys think?
I definitely agree. And I think a big part of that has to do with the way this film is edited. It is really, really smartly edited and cut to the point that the pacing between scenes with a lot of the sort of like more meta content with the stuff that we see when they're in the party house towards the end, and what's his fuck is talking about the whole rules of the horror movie. As
Randy.
I almost said Leatherface. Yeah, Randy, as Ghostface is just coming up behind him, and knowing that there is a 30-second delay on all of that is just such a money way of creating emphasis and anticipation in all of the scenes that we have set in that area. So I'm a big fucking fan.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really have too much else to add.
Well, that's okay, because I know you're going to have a little bit to add here. Let's talk through some of the horror references, some of the ways this was a love letter to the genre, and in other ways it was, you know, satirical a little bit. So I'll lead here with, and I'm going to pop back in every now and again with some factoids, but I mean, quite literally, Billy's last name is Loomis, like Loomis the doctor from Halloween. You have fucking literally Randy over here telling you about, like, talking about these kinds of like slasher movies and how, like, you have to keep it somewhat stupid or you're going to lose your core audience. And he was just like, just keep it simple, man. Just keep it fucking simple. There's a part at the beginning where they talk about Nightmare on Elm Street. And then they're like, the first one was pretty good. The rest of them kind of sucked though. And I'm laughing my ass off because Wes Craven is literally in this movie. He's not only the director, he gives himself a little cameo. He's a janitor wearing Freddy's fucking shirt. And I'm just like, bruh. So that's just a couple references for me, but y'all have any other references you want to talk out? Or maybe just, you know, just some more ways that this was satirical or anything else?
There's a couple subtle jabs in there too, like you said about the Nightmare on Elm Street one, but also people are talking about, like, if these events in this movie get turned into a movie, like, who would play, what actress would play the main character, who would play Sydney. And I can't remember who she said, but she was like, oh, knowing my luck, it would probably be a so-and-so. And it's like, oh, shit. You know, I can't remember her name right now, but I looked her up, and she was from, like, Beverly Hills 90210, I think. But whatever. Anyways, there's a couple, like, subtle jabs. There's a couple other, like I said, like the music reference to Halloween. I think there's a lot of Halloween references, in fact.
Oh, dude, like, this is pretty much, and I was going to say, this is pretty much Wes Craven shaking John Carpenter's hand and being like, I consider you to be like an equal, because they really big up Halloween and John Carpenter a bunch.
That's an interesting way to think about it, now that you mentioned that, as kind of like not only a satire, but like an homage to one of the greats. Because, I mean, this is, again, just some motherfucker in a mask. He just happens to also be in a fairly black robe.
Well, literally, they also say when they're talking about, so before you see what Ghostface looks like, and like Dan was saying, Casey says her favorite horror movie is Halloween. And they're like, yeah, like guy wearing like a white mask. He's stabbing babysitters basically. And
It's very self-aware.
yeah, it's super self-aware as a matter of
Mhm.
fact, which I fucking love. There's also like just God, there's just so much. Even when Randy's breaking down the rules of the genre, and then like there is a really cool amount of foreshadowing there because they're like, well, one of the worst things you can do is like drink and do drugs and party. And everyone's like, yeah. And then all those people live though, because they leave and they go to like the football field. So they completely subvert that trope and they live.
Mhm.
And then Sydney, who is not, fulfilling every little bit of being a final girl because she does actually sleep with someone. She actually sleeps with Billy. And literally, as she's sleeping with him, they're like, and you can never have sex. Never, ever have sex. And then a little bit before that, I forgot to mention, there's like, I guess there's a big homage to Jamie Lee Curtis because they're like, Jamie Lee Curtis is in all these fucking horror movies. And then they're like, yeah, she's like one of the Scream Queens, which she is. And then there's like, the whole part with like, and here's the obligatory tit shot from like one of the movies. And then in the movie in Scream, Neve Campbell, her character, fuck, why is her name jumping out at me at the moment? Sydney, that's right. Sorry, Sydney.
Sydney.
Yeah, she actually like takes off her bra, but the camera is obscured by Billy's back, which I found to be fucking hilarious.
I really loved that.
They
that.
literally like called out all the tropes and then instantly were subverting them as they were going along. So I thought that shit was hilarious personally. I thought that was really funny.
Likewise, on.
So a little bit of confession though for the podcast here. For some of us, this was our first time seeing Scream. I'm gonna hold my hands up and say I knew a decent chunk about this movie already, but this is my first time watching it front to back as a real watching. But Dan, your first time too, right?
Yeah, first time. Never seen it.
How was the viewing, in this here year of 2022? How's the movie hit for the first time in 2022?
Pretty good. I actually really, really enjoyed it. I personally never got spoiled or anything. Really.
Okay.
I mean, I just know, the mask and, the outfit, going around killing people, whatever.
Yeah, of course.
And then I don't know that it's necessarily a spoiler, but, recently the new Scream came out.
Right.
And, from that, I just know that the killer is somebody that they all know.
Right.
So like, that's not like, I didn't know who it was or anything, but like from the jump, I knew it was somebody in the group and not just some random killer or whatever, or, some guy who escaped from a psych ward or who was drowned in a lake or, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But so like the whole movie, I was kind of trying to figure out who it was and whatever, like kind of a murder mystery type thing for me. But I thought the movie held up really well, and it was really cool to see all the influences that it had on other movies and where it got its influences from, as we just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was definitely spoiled on this, 100% spoiled. I mean, it's kind of funny how good of a parody Scary Movie is of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like quite literally, if you've seen Scary Movie, you've seen Scream. And I literally saw Scary Movie before I ever knew about Scream or knew anything about it.
Same, yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things where watching this now, like Dan said, it's literally clear how much of like knowledge there was of horror that went into this movie. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing that stands out. And that's the thing to me that also makes it a little bit timeless, because you can look and very clearly see where this movie influenced a bunch of other movies.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a massive, massive thing for me. Nico, you pretty much in line there?
Yeah, man. Like, this feels almost as if there was a 90s version of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Like
very, very similar vibes.
Yeah, in the spirit of the film, they've got a similar appreciation for the genre and really just a love for the fun of film, I think. Like, both of those movies were just really fun, and this also was something that just kept me sort of on my toes. This was my first time watching too, and I did know that Matthew Lillard's character was a killer, but I thought, like I said, I thought he was the guy. So going into it, when that was just thrown on top of itself, I was genuinely taken aback, because like most of the time I can usually call these things as I see them, but this one got me.
Before we move on, though, Dan, there's a lot of trivia associated with this movie. Why don't you let us in on a couple tidbits?
I feel like every like classic has tons of trivia.
Yeah.
So for this one, we were speaking about earlier about Ghostface, calling the actors, calling the characters. So Drew Barrymore and Neve Campbell actually never met Roger Jackson, who voiced Ghostface. Not before the shooting commenced, anyways. When they were talking to him on the phone, that was actually him. Like, that was real. That was happening at that same time. Wes Craven originally wanted that to just, like, his voice to be a placeholder and then, like, overdub later, but he thought that he did such a good job, like, capturing what needed to be captured, that they just left it there.
Nice.
So I thought that was kind of cool. Wes Craven also initially turned down the film.
Really?
He wanted to distance himself from horror and was already working on another movie at the time. But he ended up signing on when Drew Barrymore agreed to play as well. And he also was confronted by a young little boy who was a fan of his. The kid was about 10 years old. And the boy accused Craven of going soft and that he had more guts back in the day when making movies like Last House on the Left.
Bro.
So, of course, Wes Craven was like, nah, fuck that. And he was like, nah, I'm doing this movie.
Fucking balls.
Bro,
on
that's
this
fucking-
cabron.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
And I feel like that little kid is like channeling Wes Craven as well. Because Wes Craven is a fucking savage, bro.
Yeah, he is.
So this film, the high school scenes were originally supposed to be shot at Santa Rosa High School in California. But close to the shooting date, the school board read through the script. They thought it was originally a comedy. And when they found out that it was a horror film, they said, no, you can't shoot here. So they had to move production somewhere else. And as payback, during the end credits, there's actually a special thanks section. And he writes, no thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board. And I think that's fucking hilarious. And that reminds me of the Leprechaun.
Yeah.
When they're like, fuck you, Lucky Charms.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms. Yo, I'll say this too, man. Shout outs and fucking RIP, bro. Because Wes Craven was definitely a fucking legend, man.
Yeah.
Definitely a fucking legend.
Good old Wes Craven.
Yeah, man. So before we get on to, the kind of conclusion, so to speak, do you guys have a favorite kill in this one? If so, what's your favorite kill?
It's difficult to call this my favorite kill and more of my favorite scene. It's the scene where, who's the girl in the garage? What's her character's name?
Tatum.
Thank you. I just really loved how self-aware that whole scene was, and just the charisma coming from Tatum's acting that whole time with Ghostface, thinking that it was just someone fucking around, which at a party like that in sort of just like a college setting, I feel like that is something that could be fairly reasonably expected.
Yeah,
like
knowing her boyfriends too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that guy was a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know. It's just good.
Fair. My favorite kill is, it's not even really that big in terms of the movie. I just fucking like it because, so the principal, he like catches these two kids who dressed up like Ghostface, and then he hits this fucking line. He's like, "You're thieving, whoring generation," and I was like, yo. I fucking bust out laughing when he hit that shit.
Fonz, too.
Yeah.
I know, bro. That was the thing. That was the thing that made me laugh the whole time. Every time I looked at him, I was like, bruh. But there was that. And then he like immediately gets killed afterwards. And then the literal after his death is he dies and his body's on the football field. And the kids are so excited to go see, they run over.
Can we talk about that for a second? Like, that's mad fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm sorry this is going to be in your what would you do, but like, I would not absolutely go run to see like a fucking desiccated corpse. Are you kidding me? Just strewn about on a football field? Like, I'm good. No. Why is that the reaction here?
I don't know, man. I really couldn't tell you. Dan, do you have a favorite kill?
I think my favorite kill was also the garage door kill.
All right.
Just because, kind of like what Nico was saying, it's a very self-aware scene, but also like she didn't just get stabbed. Like she got smashed by a garage door. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of creative, you know?
I didn't see that coming either.
No.
Although I knew like she was not going to fit through that fucking like cat door. I was like, there's no fucking possible way.
No way.
But now I want to ask this. Do you have a favorite character?
I think my favorite character, that's tough, is probably Randy.
Okay,
the guy
because he
who
knows
just
everything.
knows all the horror stuff.
Yeah.
But just not only was it very like meta, but also just he was like so fucking into it. And just like really into it. And I just thought that was funny. Like really like creepily, weirdly into it, but like I thought it was pretty funny.
Nico, how about you?
I really liked Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers. I thought that she was just a bundle of sass that injected a lot of fun into the movie when there were moments that were perhaps not necessarily as, humorous. And I have to give the movie one particular knock. This is the one thing that bugs me about this movie, and I'll make it quick. There is a part where Gail is running back from the party house to the van, and when we get there, we have previously seen that her assistant is dead via Ghostface and all, and there is blood like pouring out onto the car, onto the door, onto the floor, and as Gail is running towards that, she's just like, la, 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 there's nothing wrong. I don't see any problem here. There are no warning signs or red flags. Like, stuff like that is just sort of like narratively inconsistent. I realize that shit happens in the filmmaking process. You can't account for everything. This is me being like, a bastard about it. I get it. But at the same time, when you think about what she must have avoided in saying the lines that she said there without just looking down, like, are you kidding? Come on, y'all.
My favorite character is Dewey. And the reason why Dewey's my favorite character is because he's so goddamn innocent that I'm just like, yo. Like, there's a scene where, like, his police chief is smoking a cigarette and Dewey's, like, eating an ice cream cone. And
I think that was my favorite scene.
And he's like, it's kind of like, you get the hard-boiled cop just, like, smoking a cigarette, like, man, the job. And then, like, Dewey's over here, like, innocently licking an ice cream cone. I feel you, bro. And I'm just like, yo. I don't know. And his, like, he gets a lot of shit. Dewey just gets shit on the whole movie, but he doesn't let that stop him from trying to, get at Gail. Like, he still shoots his shot. And, Gail tells him at one point in time, and it's probably my favorite line of the movie. Gail's like, my demographic is like 13 to 24, because Dewey says he's 25. And she's like, I must have just missed you. And Dewey turns around and goes, well, 25 now, but I was 24 for a whole year. And I'm like, bro.
Can we also talk about the scene where they finally kiss and he says, I'm on the clock? That fucking killed me.
Yeah, so that's why he's my favorite character, just because he's in those kinds of scenes and he's an innocent bastard. So, yeah. And, real quick, I just want to, for the what would you do? Because this is, again, it's very difficult to do these for these type of meta movies, particularly something like Scream, which is so often emulated.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was going to be a person in our group to kind of be, how do I say this? If you had to go to one person for safety within the group, or to be like, oh, like this person's going to have my back against Ghostface, who's it going to be?
I feel like you.
But at the same time, you would probably be Ghostface.
Really? I'm Ghostface?
Yeah. You were
Damn it.
absolutely
I
down
can't
to
even-
troll some motherfuckers.
I can't even lie.
Yeah.
I can't even
Yeah.
lie. See, the thing is this though, like I believe in trolling people, but I don't like making people like legitimately uncomfortable. So
And
like
dead, making people dead.
Speaking of
So, like,
making
I
people legitimately uncomfortable, sorry to interrupt, during the scene where the three of them, Stu, Billy, is that his name?
yeah, Billy,
Billy,
yeah.
and Sydney are in the kitchen. They're just like sort of taunting Sydney. When Billy throws a phone at Matthew Lillard, that like actually really fucking hurt Matthew Lillard. And the line when he's saying like, "Oh, you don't have to be a dick about it, man," was like unscripted.
Oh,
Just wanted to throw that in there really quickly.
that's kind of funny.
He actually, and I guess that wasn't acting, but that whole scene where he's like sort of starting to die and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
his speech gets a little like slurred a little bit, but he's still like super enthusiastic and emphatic. Stu, like he did a really good job
He's
on that.
such a good
Yeah.
actor, man.
He does those roles really well.
Mhm.
Like really, really, really well. He gets kind of like that in a couple movies, and it's like, bruh, like this is why you're here, man. This is why you're here.
Mhm.
But between the three of us, and this is kind of like the last what would you do? So we got Gail Weathers, the reporter. We've got Dewey, the cop. And then we've got, just to throw it out there, Sydney. For the three of us, who is what person? I'm not putting Ghostface in there, so ha. So which of us is going to be most like Sydney? Which of us is going to be most like Dewey? And which of us is going to be most like Gail?
I don't know.
I feel like Nico is Dewey, Justin is Gail Weathers, and I'm Sydney.
That's fair.
Wow.
That's fair.
Damn.
That's fair. I have to agree with that.
I'm
That's
the
spot
innocent
on.
one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fuck me.
The only reason why is because I didn't put you as Sydney, Nico, is because at a certain point in time, Sydney actually starts like making some like some questions that I feel like, knowing you, Nico, I feel like your mind at that point in time where Sydney was at would have been in a more one-track direction. And so Sydney's over here like positing questions about the universe, like, oh, by the way, what happened with this? How'd you go to jail? Da 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 da. You'd have just been like, not even thinking about that right now, boss.
It's not even on my to-do
So-
list.
Not even anywhere close. So that's fair. That's fair. But it's time for the critic review. So once again, hit me with it, y'all. Where do you think this one's at on Rotten Tomatoes?
92 for me, for my guess.
I gotta say, this feels like something when I have to imagine they must have known this was already an instant classic when it came out. I'm gonna say this is like a 96.
Dan wins this week.
Yes.
This one is at a somewhat humble 79%
Wow.
from both the critics and the audience. All things
Still
are balanced
high,
here.
Still high.
Wow.
They're both at 79% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Surprising.
Surprising indeed. But it's time for us to make our judgment. So, where do you put this at? And give me, brief little synopsis of your feelings on the film.
I'm going to put this at a 96.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was like the perfect combination of comedy and horror. And the funny parts were really funny, but it didn't like break away from the horror and the tension that the movie kind of built up. I liked the commentary as well. I really liked when earlier, Justin, you were talking about how Randy would often point out these tropes in the genre, and then they would kind of subvert the tropes. Kind of like when he was talking about, oh, you never, ever have sex, and like that means you're gonna die. I was sitting there, I was like, oh shit, is Sydney gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna subvert the trope? Or are they gonna play into it? Like, which way are they gonna go? And I thought that was really cool because I didn't know what they were gonna do. I had a blast watching this, so 96.
Fair play. I'm right up there with you. This one is going to get a 93 for me. And I feel like this was a refreshing movie. I watch a lot of horror movies. I mean, it's kind of ironic. I obviously do this podcast, but I also just enjoy watching horror movies as a hobby. So sometimes I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do now? Guess I'll watch a horror movie. But I actually watched this one with my mom. Mad wholesome, I know.
What did she think of it?
And well, that's what I was going to say. so she had seen the movie already. She actually was clowning me, how have you not seen Scream front to back? I'm embarrassed. And so like mom was over here trying to like horror fan gatekeep me. And anyone who, I might have mentioned it on the podcast once or twice, but my mom is totally the reason why I'm into horror movies. And she stoked that fire in me from a young age.
Shouts to Mama Lopaton.
Yeah, man. And so she was like, when we finished, she's like, you know what? That was a pretty good movie. I really like that movie. And I was like, yeah, me too. So I just really like the movie a lot. I think everything about it's cool. There's really not too much that I would change. Only one the minorest of things. It's a massive trope that like 9 times out of 10, the boyfriend is going to be a shit and die or be the killer. This is how things go in horror movies. The boyfriend is the least reliable person in any horror movie. And I mean, Billy straight up looks like a serial killer from the off. Like, he straight up looks like a serial killer. And I appreciate, and that's why I don't knock the movie too much, because they give you this guy who's like the killer, and you pretty much see him to be the killer. He suspiciously shows up right after the killer shows up. Fucking Randy's in the horror movie store like, yeah, bro, you're the killer. And I mean, there's all that. And then they subvert that. They have him go to jail and someone else, you know what I mean, makes the phone call. And it's just kind of like, oh man, how's that going to work out? They do give you a massive clue because that comment Randy makes about him still being the killer is after Billy gets released from jail. And he's like, nah, he's still the killer. But I thought that was interesting. I really did. So like I said, 93 for me. I think it's a really top-notch film. But Nico, why don't you take us home?
I loved this. I'm going to give this a 95. And the points that I'm taking off from it being higher are just because of that one scene where Gale is running towards a hideously bloody van and is like, this is fine.
So this was going to get a recommend from us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
I mean, we're all in the 90s. This is a golden seal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. That's right. That's the golden stamp seal of approval right there.
That was
there.
Weak. That was weak.
I'm sorry. I got to go back. Hang on. I didn't stamp it.
Better.
There we go. I've stamped it now for real. I stamped it for real. So this joins the elite ranks, and it feels like we've been handing out these golden seals left and right because Perfect Blue got one. Bloodlust got one.
And Texas Chainsaw sure didn't.
All right, Texas Chainsaw didn't. Okay, they did not. But this one did. So we've been generous. We've been generous recently. Long may it continue, me watching movies that I actually fucking enjoy. So
here's hoping.
Here's hoping indeed. So, any last words before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, just really quick, shout outs to you, Desi, for just being a awesome person and not only suggesting this, but, you know, being a good friend. You rule.
Exactly. Desi's been a supporter of this podcast since the jump. Since the jump. So definitely shout outs to you. But yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, let us know what you think about this or any other movie, or just tell us an opinion about us. Go ahead. We can take it. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't open that door. And as always, you can check out every episode we've ever done on our website. That's dotdhorror.com. But still then, take care of one another. Keep yourself safe. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.